Erica Lorraine Spencer here. This is my podcast called the P.O.C, where I am engaged in systematic publishing of what is documentation, that is legal evidence published, that is documenting the state of California engaged in a ceaseless criminal pattern of conduct designed to monitor an American citizen, that is myself. So I am documenting that which the state of California is currently and actively engaged in, which is criminal under the law. And it is basically California's system of group stalking, monitoring, surveillance, and harassment. And this is the significance of my documentation. It is ongoing. It is occurring in real time. It is also that which I have in multiple forms, in video, in writing, and in audible form. And what I continue to be subject to as I document it, and the state is engaged in literally monitoring that which I am publishing about its own criminal conduct. And this is the substance of what I have. Now I just captured another video of the state engaged in the same state stalking at 8:15 p.m., where it is the combination of third-party group stalkers acting in concert with the state. That is the stalker, the entity itself, the state of California, that is operating the system of group stalking in concert with the people of the state of California. Third parties represent a group. They act in unison. So it is not specific to a person, a specific identity. Third parties are a group acting as one. As the state is acting as the one operating that system, third parties operate as a group. And this is how, it is a matter of public corruption, and this is how it conceals itself, because the ordinary understanding of what a stalker is premised on an individual. And what I am documenting is that the state is a public entity that is the stalker, and it is by virtue of the perpetual presence of third parties, that is the people of the state of California, are engaged in contract stalking. They are engaged in what is group stalking, or otherwise referred to as gang stalking, on behalf of the state of California, that is the entity operating that state system of targeting American citizens, for the purpose of exposing that, what that system looks like, how that system operates, and all of the ways in which it manifests itself, speaking to the need for legislation in order to be able to identify and expose and disincentivize, in order to break up, in order to expel that which is no longer ever to be concealed. This is that which is designed to insulate itself, and by that I mean this system, it is designed to insulate itself. So a targeted individual subject to this system is supposed to be dismissed in society, dismissed as suffering mental incapacity in one way or another, which is criminal. That's a criminal act of concealment and obstruction, which is a part of the pattern of conduct. And my documentation shows that that element of the system is in operation in the court system. It's in operation by third parties, not only in relevant position engaged in the state's group stalking system, but on the online venue of the internet. And that is the implication of a very vast system exceeding just California. The internet is the World Wide Web, and you have the state system pattern of conduct on the internet, and that is concerted conduct with the government, where it is engaged in targeting American citizens, and that third-party conduct has the impact of, the effect of oppression, of silencing, of rendering illegitimate that which is the being subject to an illegal criminal system operated and controlled by the state, a public entity, which poses a credible threat under the law. So all conduct by third parties, which is legally facilitation, which is seeking to obstruct directly or by its impact indirectly, is that which is to be outlawed under legislation which needs to be passed with regard to group stalking, which in many ways is foreign, and it's not a coincidence, because it is the government that is engaged in gang stalking, in group stalking, contract stalking, and you have what I am presenting, direct evidence of that system, such that it is no longer capable of being that which is just dismissed by one who was crazy. Targeting individuals who may have in the past, I'm not aware, because legislation literally does not exist. And so this is that which is systematically swept under the rug, where one may claim that they are being subject to what I have documented, being followed by police everywhere you go, the ubiquitous presence of law enforcement, the ubiquitous presence of aircrafts, airplanes, and helicopters everywhere, even inside of private residences. It is abnormal. It is not normal. It is something that is exceptional in and of itself, something deserving of documentation, something deserving of dispersing it, sharing it with the public, the World Wide Web, because it needs to be explored. It needs to be understood that this is a malicious system in operation. And so today, September 8th, 2020, at 8:15 p.m., I'm going to now share what is video of another criminal act pursuant to the same pattern of conduct of group stalking operated by the state of California that remains present by police, by helicopters and airplanes as they continue to create audible activity, which is the criminal conduct of the second element of monitoring. There are 3 elements of monitoring: light, activity, and relevant positioning. Light is always constant. The state is engaged in a pattern of conduct of aiming and positioning and directing light directly over me, over my environment, and third parties are engaged in that concerted conduct by also creating light activity, directing light into the environment, and also engaged in creating other methods of what is activity. That is the second element. Activity is audible, visual, and or sensational. Sensational is that which you can touch, which you can feel. And so you can engage in that by rumbling, creating mimicking like an earthquake, creating any sort of vibrations, shaking an area. That is that which I have documented, which is a very common part of the pattern of conduct by the state that is engaged in stalking. And the third element is relevant positioning, and that is a constant as well, as the state is engaged in group stalking and third parties that are group stalkers. By definition, they are present in relevant position, meaning they are in the path with communication devices engaged in that criminal system of monitoring, and by virtue of that criminal act, that intentional presence to engage with the state with communication devices to monitor, they are stalking, they are present. In other words, they are following in and on behalf of the state that is operating that targeting system, that stalking system that hides behind the very people of the state of California. And that is the definition of group stalking, where third parties are never present idly or by coincidence. They are always present. And this is shown by the consistent pattern. There is no exception and there is no exclusion. This is including in the courts and in the jails, at the city halls. You're talking about at the police stations. I'm talking about a state system that is ceaselessly underway. And third parties, they are engaged in that presence while acting criminally to monitor an American citizen. And that is group stalking, because the stalker is the state of California that is operating that system. And they act in concert with and on behalf of, by virtue of their presence, with the state that is the stalker. Hence the term group stalking, because they do it as a group. They are present, engaged in monitoring as a group. And that's P.O.C. So this is the video that I want to share. Everything that you can hear with even my voice is a form of activity, but I'm focusing on the conduct of the state and the third parties. But let's be clear, the state uses everything that I do as a means of their activity, creation, as they monitor with communication devices. So as I exist and as I'm inside making a podcast, for example, the state that is engaged in aiming light and third party stalkers that are engaged in aiming light and creating activity, that and using inanimate objects inside of my room to create activity as I've documented, that is also adding to the activity that they use when you are monitoring with communication devices. So let's be clear, but in my documentation, I am focused on the group stalker, that is the state of California that is present, stalking in airplanes and helicopters, and by police and by the third parties, that is the people of the state of California. They are indistinguishable. Their specific name, their age, their race, their job title, what they appear to be doing on the outside is irrelevant. This is how the system is in operation, because form is patently ridiculous. This is how public corruption originally was able to hide itself, and it is not, because I am showing how those elements of monitoring remain present. And where those elements are ongoing, and that hallmark of state stalking is present, the criminal system is in operation. And there is no form that any police officer or fire department personnel or ambulance worker can create in order to evade that criminal operation. It is ceaselessly underway, and that's what the documentation shows. And this is how you understand and see how this system remains in operation at all times, unhindered at all times, and how it is designed to insulate itself, and how it third parties and the state alike mutually have relied on looking on the outside what they do, what they look like, or what it looks like they're doing as some sort of legitimate purpose for their presence, and it is not. Whatever it is that they tend to be doing or appear to be doing, it is while monitoring is underway. And so monitoring is present at all times because those elements remain present at all times. And so there is no form providing any sort of exception or exclusion. And this is how a state system operates. That is how public corruption, by definition, exists. It hides in plain sight. It is currently, right now, it is 8:32 p.m. and I'm going to now go through what I recorded at 8:15 p.m. at third-party facilitating venue Economy Inn, where every single last third party is in relevant position, is engaged in the state monitoring system, using communication devices. And while that preeminent fact remains of state stalking flying directly over my room on a continuous, ceaseless basis, which prefaces all other facts. That is called the P.O.C, so we can listen now. Conduct, the state is flying over my room right here. They just flew directly over my room, and this is a third-party license plate, 61810F1. That is light activity and audible activity. That is somebody that was already sitting in their car. They just turned on the headlights. They are in relevant position as the state. That's the state right there that is flying over my room. What I am tweeting about, the state continues to do. And not only that, in anticipation of me stepping out of my room to document it on video, this is called third-party conduct, creating activity while they anticipate me to step outside. This is light activity as they move. That's license plate 6J Zebra Edward 097. That's a third party that was already sitting inside of their car. 6J Zebra Edward 097. That's third party crossing path with light activity in relevant position while they were already sitting in the car while I was in my room, while the state, that's the state that has continuously flied directly above my room at Economy Inn. These are group stalkers. This is what group stalkers do. The state is engaged in creating audible activity while group stalkers, that is the third people, the people of the state of California, surround, while the state itself surrounds, and the state is present by airplanes flying directly above my room, creating amplified audible activity while I'm in the midst of uploading videos to YouTube about that which is relevant to 2018 when I first when I first began documenting what I now recognize as group stalking by the state with third parties. It is September 8, 2020, it's 8:17 p.m. And again, this is just a visual with what I continue to tweet. I'm tweeting online about the state flying over repeatedly in airplanes because that is what is happening in real time. This third party, understand what group stalking is. They are in relevant position in the same zone where the state is engaged in state stalking by airplanes, police, and helicopters. Here at third party facilitating venue, Economy Inn. This is relevant position with a communication device creating light activity and creating noise in the form of a beeping truck that is not coincidentally present, creating activity that just so happens to be the result of how you monitor an American citizen. That is intentional conduct by a third party, a group stalker. That is P.O.C. This is one example of what third parties do on a habitual basis. That third party that was sitting in their car, they are sitting there creating additional light activity. They're just sitting at the driveway. They were positioned, sitting in their car like the group stalkers do. That is the pattern of conduct, while the state is flying directly over my room on a consistent basis. That is called P.O.C. at Economy Inn. This cooler that does not operate by itself is used as a continuous means inside of my room, turning on and off while it stays at the same exact setting. The state is using this inanimate object to also create activity. That is P.O.C. while I remain at third-party facilitating venue, subject to group stalking and monitoring.
It's 8:18 p.m.
Okay, so with regard to what I captured in video, this is about what is an ongoing pattern. There are a couple of things that I have mentioned. The legislation on many fronts that has yet to be created, and that is because group stalking has never been addressed, and that is because it is a system designed to insulate and conceal itself, and they do so. This system does so. The government does so by dismissing, systematic dismissal of any target individuals alleging that they are being subject to being targeted by the government. It is designed to falsely depict and defame that targeted individual. It is designed to render illegitimate any claims of that targeted individual. And the unfortunate outcome of that, I surmise, would be what Judge Lisa Rogan intended, which was to feign a prosecution upon a false arrest, upon assault and battery, where I'm documenting the Ontario police, Jason Knighton and L. Keys, engaged in the pattern of conduct of state stalking. This is January 13th, 2020, where I was falsely arrested after I took an image of the state engaging in state stalking and monitoring, flying directly to my right over the 7-Eleven at G Street and Vine Avenue, like it habitually has done, as my documentation also reflects. And seconds later, I took an image of the license plate of that police officer vehicle, where they were engaged in no traffic stop, where actually I was engaged in violation of no law whatsoever, and those officers not only lied, they engaged in an assault and battery, and then they engaged in theft of my property, they engaged in kidnapping, all for the criminal purpose of engagement in monitoring, driving me around while subject to false arrest for an unlawful cause upon having no probable cause to ever touch or arrest me, while the airplanes were flying above, following as those officers drove me around against my will, against any legal right to do so, while they were turning lights on and off inside of the police vehicle. That's how you monitor. They were in relevant position creating light activity inside of the car with communication devices, while the state is also stalking above the vehicles in airplanes. I'm looking at them, the airplanes that are remaining directly outside of my window as the police vehicle is driving me around to what was the Chino Valley Hospital, I believe, to put a Band-Aid on my finger, not even addressing the actual injuries that were caused by Jason Knighton's physical attack and L. Key's assistance of that attack upon my person that night. Theft of my property, removing my beanie from my head, which is irrelevant after I'm already in the car and arrested. The only reason why he took off my beanie, that's about exposure. That's about exposing me, making sure that I am thoroughly monitored and exposed as they drove me around. That's kidnapping, where you are illegally arresting, where you are engaged in a criminal system of monitoring. And that was the criminal purpose. These are the extremely criminal acts of those who work for the state. Okay? And that is a pattern of conduct. Lisa Rogan is a judge that engaged in criminal conduct of concealment and obstruction while she was acting complicit to the state system of group stalking and monitoring. That pattern of conduct that she was engaged in, number one, entertaining what is a fictitious prosecution, as F. Ramos, who on paper, pursuant to what Miss Vanessa Rodriguez, the alleged public defender, a criminal sworn to act as an attorney for the state of California. She is operating with the state as a fictitious prosecution was waged against me after I was subject to illegal arrest and false imprisonment in West Valley Detention Center on January 13, 2020, while I was engaged in documenting perfectly legal conduct, documenting what was state stalking at that intersection of Vine and G Street. Airplanes flying over the 7-Eleven right to my right next to me as I'm standing in the 7-Eleven parking lot, and the police, the state, engaged in state stalking, being in the path, creating light activity, engaged in form of doing some sort of traffic stop. That is what police are always engaged in, form, just like third parties engaged in form. Where the state is operating that state system of group stalking, there is no form, whereby they are claiming that they are present in relevant position, also happening to create activity which ends up in the result of monitoring with communication devices. There is no There's no form that accepts that conduct in that actor. In addition to that, those officers were engaged in the pattern of conduct, the documented pattern of conduct of police always being present. Wherever it is I go, wherever it is I remain. And that did not change with Jason Knighton and L. Keys on January 13th. And what Lisa Rogan did on, that was the day of what was supposed to be an alleged trial and what was a fictitious prosecution at the inception to there was no conclusion because there was never even a fake trial. There was a fake arraignment by one who misrepresented herself as a judge, Shannon Faherty, who is not a judge, not on the bar site, not on the roster of judges as a judge. She is an attorney. She is not a judge, and yet she arraigned me. And I put that in air quotes because this is that which was initiated by an F as in Frank, F. Ramos, who does not exist on the California bar site. So this is a DA with the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office who is not a real person. And this is documented absence of this person on the bar site. So this is a mysterious person that initiated some fictitious prosecution upon having never there being any probable cause to ever touch me or arrest me after being subject to false imprisonment. And you have the criminal, the judge, Kyle Brody, also engaged in entertainment of a fictitious prosecution, engaging in entertainment in the form of a quote-unquote trial readiness conference. You have Kimberly Appaloo, a judge. She is a criminal, entertaining a fictitious prosecution for the purpose of all of this is for the purpose of having me remain subject to false imprisonment and defamation. Not only did Kyle Brody on February 14th set what was supposed to be, and I'm putting all this in air quotes because there is no real case. There was no real case. And this is the criminal conduct in the court. So the court is literally the state's, it's not a third-party facilitating venue. It is the state's own venue where the P.O.C. is facilitated, where the judges themselves, the attorneys and the lawyers are engaged in the state's criminal system. And they focus on concealment and obstruction of your ability to ever expose that you are being subject to targeting. And they did that not only in the criminal courts by engaging in malicious prosecution and a fictitious prosecution, meaning not even a real DA, not even a real arraignment, never having there even been a fake trial for me to document. And on the date of what was supposed to be a trial, you have on February 18th my arrival in anticipation of some quote-unquote trial, aware that there was no F. Ramos, aware that Shannon Faherty is not a judge, but you are dealing with a state that poses a credible threat, and it is all a matter of documentation of every criminal act that they engage in. And this serves the purpose, this serves the public good of exposing how the state engages in that system. And it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, mind you, the California Supreme Court. And so on February 18th, Lisa Rogan, the moment that I step in the court, after I am observing all manner of police officers patrolling, that is walking back and forth while the state is aiming impossible light activity onto the floors of that courtroom where I was right in front of it. That is the fake sun that was aiming light onto the floors as third parties engaged in constant patrolling back and forth, creating all manner of audible and visual activity while they were engaged in packing that courthouse to its capacity in addition to the courtroom. The court was filled to capacity such that there was not even any room to sit down. You would have thought that there was going to be a television broadcast of my prosecution. That's how many third parties were in there. That's how full it was. And there are cameras inside of that courtroom, inside of that courthouse. And this actually happened. So February 18th, I walked in, and the moment that I happened to walk in at around 9:15 and 9:20, where I'm number 31 on the calendar of the court, Lisa Rogan immediately calls me. She's already seated on the bench. She's waiting for me, engaged in the third parties and the state. That is, it's filled with attorneys and police that are sitting in the side attorney rooms. They're positioned around inside of the courtroom. Third parties have filled the gallery to capacity, all with communication devices out, and they are engaged in ongoing P.O.C. of monitoring. And this is monitoring before Lisa Rogan engages in the criminal acts that she engaged in. And this is that which the state does on a consistent basis. And so it is occurring inside of the courts. The airplanes are flying over the courthouse. The helicopter is flying over the courthouse. The state is engaged in sounding its sirens while I'm in the parking lot at the courthouse. That is P.O.C., the same exact behavioral patterns at every other place that I am at. It is the same stalking and monitoring conduct, and it is occurring at the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse. And this is what happened on February 18th. And Lisa Rogan engages in what is the criminal obstruction of the ability to expose and speak to what a state is engaged in, which is a criminal system of group stalking and monitoring. And it is obstruction in the criminal courts in that they feigned and brought a fictitious prosecution. And I've named that in the aforementioned ways in which I documented it. The DA, which name that does not exist, and the use of Reza Ronagi. This is a third party. Well, he is an attorney, so he's a state actor. He's engaged in being the DA on a case that against me in a fictitious prosecution. The reason why this is so directed in its targeting conduct, and this is speaking to also that which is it is a fictitious prosecution and speaks to the high, unprecedented level of criminality of the state. Reza Ronagi is one who I used to formerly work with when I was working for Michael Bialis, the law offices of Michael Bialis in West Hills. And this is all documented, okay? Reza Ronagi, and Reza is a nickname that he goes by, but he's present acting as the DA, stating that he's, quote unquote, ready for trial, appears on this day, appears at trial readiness conference, and appears on the day of trial, where there was no trial whatsoever. I'm just speaking to not only was there no DA, not only was Shannon Faherty not a judge, not only is this a fictitious prosecution altogether, you have Reza Ronagi, who is one that would otherwise, if this were, he is severely conflicted in quote-unquote prosecuting a case against me where there's no probable cause, where it is a criminal act brought against me by the state itself in order to obstruct my ability to bring a civil suit against it for state stalking. That's what the substance of that is. Reza Ronagi is one that I used to work with, and it is not a coincidence that he was present engaging in prosecution of a fictitious case. This is the state engaging in malicious targeting conduct. And they don't even have to say anything by virtue of his presence. It is a statement to me, the targeted individual, understanding and knowing that this is a fake case and seeing the ways in which they engage in that extreme and just unbelievable criminal act. Reza Ronagi knows exactly who I am. I worked with him under Michael Bialis law firm, and they can try to change history all they want, but I have the paycheck stubs when I worked for Michael Bialis, and Reza Ronagi was there, and he resigned, quote unquote. He resigned shortly thereafter I arrived, but we worked together, and I also saw him, talked on the phone with him as I was working under Michael Bialis' law firm, a private defense law firm in West Hills. And not only that, we would run into each other, but now that I know that it was group stalking that was underway, there was never any coincidence of my running into him or any other third party or every other police officer that always seemed to be surrounding me as well everywhere that I went, which at the time I had not yet noticed as a pattern. But Reza Ronagi is very familiar to me. And he is the one that is present at the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse representing himself as a DA. And I documented exactly where he worked on the bar site, and also the fact that he would be conflicted, even if this were a real prosecution. He is severely conflicted. That is a violation of the rules surrounding practicing law and acting as a DA. It's just patently absurd and just highly criminal and egregious, malicious conduct that the state is engaged in. And so I want to focus back in on Lisa Rogan. She is a judge. This is a criminal wearing a robe, sitting on the bench, engaged in criminal obstruction. And that obstruction is through the fictitious prosecution that she entertained in her courtroom while P.O.C. for monitoring was underway, group stalking was underway. And then she had me taken into custody, and which is what she engaged in, which is slander and libel, because she misrepresented publicly in what is a fake case. And so meaning there is no qualified or absolute privilege. This is the state engaging in a crime in the court. And this is where she misrepresents and states that I am being taken into custody because I am not going to submit to being subject to, while outside of custody, I'm not going to submit to being committed or being examined for being committed. This is defamation. And not only that, I arrived for a trial in a fake case, which I know is fake, but there was never any trial. I arrived for trial. Laura Alvarez, who was supposedly the public defender, she is a criminal. She is engaged in the same criminal system. She's just in the form of a public defender who in no way represented any of my interests, communicated nothing about the case, was absolutely silent as the judge. She is the state, as the state engaged in taking me into custody after having there been no trial, after there having been nothing occurring in between the quote-unquote trial readiness conference on February 14th and the trial the next Tuesday on February 18th. So this is a denial of a trial in a fictitious prosecution where I was subject from that date on until April 21st or April 22nd, because I was released in the middle of the night from West Valley Detention Center from false imprisonment. All of this designed to conceal and obstruct what is a state-organized system of group stalking and monitoring, surveillance, and harassment. That is how the judges and the lawyers in the court engage in obstruction. How they engage in obstruction and facilitation by third parties online, as I'm documenting, third-party venues such as TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and Tumblr and Google engage in that same criminal complicity, that same criminal obstruction. It is concerted conduct because you are talking about a government that is engaged in a criminal targeting system on an American citizen. This poses a potent, credible threat. And so where you are engaged in that which is in no way able to be rectified, it cannot be remedied in the court because the state is the criminal. The state is using the courts itself in order to facilitate its own criminal conduct. And so you have the third-party venues online engaging in facilitation. This is that which is to be outlawed because of the potent, credible threat that is posed by a government engaging in such system, and because of the credible threat that is posed where third-party venues such as TikTok and Google and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, etc., engage in obstruction, which presents a credible threat because the targeted individual remaining subject to that criminal conduct by the state, by the government, creates more danger. There is no resolution. The police are the criminals. The state is the criminal that is stalking in airplanes and helicopters. The state is the criminal that is evading service of process to your civil suit against it for that criminal conduct. The state is the criminal that is bringing fictitious and malicious prosecutions against you for the same purpose of obstructing and concealing that state system, where the state is engaged in ceaseless operation of that system. This is why and how legislation has yet to address the many multitudinous ways in which the state is a criminal that seeks to insulate its own criminal conduct, and how legislation that creates the ways in which a targeted individual may prosecute the state by bringing suit without the input of the state whatsoever. That is what is necessary, and it is absolutely feasible. And legislation such as systematic infliction of inhumane suffering, where the state is engaged in stalking by noise, stalking by light, and stalking by entity. That is the government itself that is the stalker. Stalking with the police and fire department and ambulance and planes and helicopters, and then stalking by third parties, the people of the state that are present on its behalf, being surrounded by stalkers at all times. This is an infliction of a systematic form of inhumane suffering, and this is that which legislation, it doesn't exist. Not on this level where it is a government that is engaged in that level of harm, which is not capable of being quantified. And so you have it where it is occurring within a context of a pattern of conduct. And group stalking is that which is systematic conduct occurring over and over and over again. Monitoring is three elements that remain present. Group stalking is a constant. That's the element of relevant positioning. Light is a constant. Day and night, the state is engaged in aiming light onto the environment, onto your person, wherever it is that you are at. And in addition to placing its fake light sources in the form of a fake sun object, in the form of a fake moon object that are placed directly above you, directly above your environment. Those are light sources, serving the criminal purpose of monitoring. In addition to ILA, that's impossible light activity, where the state is engaged in acting in concert with its group stalker counterparts, third parties, by the multitudes as they cross path, directing light that shoots like a laser, in no way occurring naturally, reflecting off of any item, let alone vehicles, onto asphalt and walls, and shooting backwards in order to touch a person, which is criminal monitoring. And this is that which is an extreme, an unfathomable level of violation of the reasonable sensibilities of any ordinary person, let alone the targeted individual that is subject to it by the multitudes. You're talking about this criminal conduct occurring in traffic. So as you are sitting down at the bus stop, for example, and hundreds of vehicles are passing, and you have ILA hitting your person over and over and over again, and that which is designed to monitor you, and being aware of the criminal conduct that is being waged against you, it is a form of tangible and intangible harm. This is a form of inhumane suffering and occurring on a systematic basis, which legislation has never addressed, because group stalking is that which is designed to conceal itself in the court system and in society as third parties, not only in relevant position, but also on the World Wide Web, are engaged in facilitation of that criminal system, which is a matter of obstructing it, obstructing the ability to get justice, to expose it, to stop that criminal operation. That's a criminal act, and that is to be outlawed by any third party. Where you are engaging in acts that have that impact, it is a criminal offense, and an egregious one, because the actor is the government, and this is speaking to a credible threat for which there is no tolerance for such criminal conduct by third parties and by the state. And this is what I am advocating, and this is the urgency of that. This is the significance and the substance of my documentation, of speaking to the use of inanimate objects inside of whatever space that you're in. This is relevant with regard to the state's stalking presence. Stalking, even inside of any quote-unquote private space, there is no private space. You're subject to corporate invasion of privacy, third parties and the state alike, listening to every breath you breathe. As you have any bodily functions, the state is listening and creating noise, activity, as any bodily function is occurring. That's inaudible with the human ear. This is an unfathomable level of invasion, of violation. It is a systematic form of inflicting inhumane suffering. And so that is just to go through with regard to what the state continues to do, and this is what I tweet. I'm tweeting about it. I'm forwarding it on the social media pages that I have. The third-party online venues engaged in facilitating the state's pattern of conduct, which is an unlawful act done directly, intentionally, and also having a facilitating impact, which is equally unlawful, where the government is engaged in that system of targeting, and that poses a credible threat to an American citizen, especially where the court system itself is merely a venue, the state's own venue for facilitation of that criminal conduct. And so that is P.O.C. And the elaboration on the criminal court system, that is just an example of how the state system is designed to insulate itself. This is a real-time example, a documented example of what actually literally happened. And it is that which I do have documented. It is direct evidence against the state, but I am speaking to my purpose in exposing and demonstrating, exemplifying the need for legislation, because group stalking is not just the engagement in those elements of monitoring. The state is engaged in group stalking for the criminal purpose of monitoring. That's why they're stalking, because they are monitoring 24/7. And in order to monitor 24/7, you have to be present 24/7. And the state is not only present by police officers, the state is present by every single face representing the people of the state of California. They are present as a group together. Even when only one is seen, you're talking about communication devices as the technological means of that monitoring conduct. And so they are present, stalking on behalf of that entity that is monitoring 24/7. And this system is not only engaged in by those elements, but it is engaged in by any method, any manifestation of facilitation of that criminal system. Anything having the effect of keeping that targeted individual subject to that criminal conduct by a government that poses a credible threat to that American citizen. And so that is what is the definition of facilitation and obstruction and concealment. And that is what is occurring from venue to venue, venue, as my documentation shows, and that is what has yet to be addressed by legislation and is in dire need of being addressed by legislation, which is what I advocate, which is what I am the real-life example of, as I have literally documented from venue to venue being subject to every fathomable form of the state's P.O.C., not only by monitoring, but the facilitation and the obstruction aspect of it in the court system itself. And in the civil court system, it is the same facilitating conduct, and that goes up to the California Supreme Court. The California Supreme Court is the highest level, but so the appeals court is inclusive in that, and the appeals court that I specifically dealt with is the 4th Appellate District, 2nd Division. But again, that is one example of the entire system. It's not just that court. You're talking about a system in California. So you're talking about that which is demonstrative of corruption in the state of California. Those courts happen to give a real world example of what is occurring in the state of California, not limited to that division, not limited to that courthouse. And again, the civil courts engaged in the evasion of service of process, which is a basic fundamental right. You're talking about a First Amendment right to access to the courts. And that was a flat-out patent denial, that which is a meritorious claim to the appeals court for service of process. There is no argument on the part of the court to have denied that, and the appeals court, pursuant to P.O.C. of facilitation and obstruction, a criminal act revealing the existence of a state system in operation, that is that which was denied. After a prolonged delay, they summarily denied that meritorious request, a writ of mandamus requesting that the appeals court order Thomas Garza, the criminal, facilitating the state's criminal system by evading service of process for a civil case brought against the state of California for state stalking, initiated September 12, 2019 at the San Bernardino Superior Courthouse. That is a matter of fact. That is a matter of documentation. That is the ways in which P.O.C., the pattern of conduct, manifests itself at each venue, how facilitation and obstruction manifests itself at each venue, including the courthouse. So it is 9:03 p.m., and this is an at-length elaboration on the fact that the P.O.C. is continuously underway at third-party facilitating venue economy, and it is underway on the internet as I document third parties acting in concert with the state that is clearly engaged in the ongoing stalking conduct via airplanes, helicopters, and police. I continue to tweet about it, but let's be clear, even if I am not on the internet at that moment tweeting about it, it is a ceaseless system. It is not reasonable to posit that all of a sudden the state just stops following me and being present everywhere that I am at. That is not reasonable based on a prolonged, documented pattern of conduct of always being present where I am. And this is not a coincidence. That is what the law describes and defines as stalking conduct. The fact that it is engaged in by an entity is in no way any sort of argument on behalf of the government. It is that which is equally applied to the government, if not more so, because there is no legitimate argument on behalf of a government posing a credible threat to an American citizen, prudent enough to just document it. And that's exactly what happened. I just documented it because it is an extraordinary occurrence everywhere that you're going, that airplanes and helicopters and police are always present, especially when compared to the fact that prior to it never happened before. And what occurred is the more I documented the occurrences, the incidents, the more aggressive the state got. The more police officers became visibly present. The more third parties engaged in outward, just blatant stalking conduct, hiding behind, sitting in their cars, just surrounding around, engaging. The more I documented it, the more aggressive the conduct became, to the fact that airplanes and helicopters became involved in the pattern of conduct. And that was December 2018. And it has evolved since then. And this is what you get where you have a targeted individual that seeks to confront that system, not capable of dismissing me as suffering, not successfully, while they want to and they by third parties in the state engaging in criminal facilitation, by engaging in acts of harassment and defamation, they are engaging in showing that their true status as an actor in the state system, because it is in no way, not only is it baseless and unqualified and an unrational reaction to direct evidence of what is stalking by definition under the law. It's not a natural reaction. I wouldn't react. First of all, taking a step back, I would not react that way if somebody had that level, that amount of evidence of what they're claiming. I mean, I'm not saying I would conclude one way or another either, but I am saying if I was totally ignorant of what they were talking about, they were telling me about their experience, and I see the evidence of it, I am not literally going to react, oh, you're crazy, you need to get help. That is an unnatural reaction. It is not commensurate to the evidence supporting the claims of that conduct. It is that which is pursuant to a pattern of conduct, which is ordinarily designed to dismiss that targeted individual, but where you have direct evidence of those claims, this is not successful, and this is not what the result will be. I am showing how that is the pattern of conduct, and that is the malicious design of that system. And the real world examples are shown in the courtrooms, where the officers of the court are engaged in criminal conduct of facilitation, of obstruction, and concealment, and defamation, engaged in the same exact pattern of conduct in the face of direct evidence of the state system seeking to conceal that. That in and of itself provides more credence, provides more substance to all of the facts that I am presenting and publishing to the public, showing how and the ways in which group stalking operates, and the ways in which it manifests itself, how it looks, and how the state operates. That is called P.O.C. My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer. It is, again, it's September 8th, it's 2020. And that video is, again, to reiterate, the state is engaged in ceaseless stalking. This is just another example of that which is occurring on a ceaseless basis. This is called group stalking. And the state's engagement in state stalking is the preeminent fact that prefaces all other facts. Okay, this is called the hallmark of a group stalking system, otherwise referred to as gang stalking or contract stalking. This is speaking to the ongoing perpetual presence of third parties. That is the people of the state that are present on behalf of that stalking entity. And they are present on behalf because they are engaged in monitoring with communication devices, and thereby there is no coincidental presence in the path of the target individual. Where you are in relevant position, you are engaged in P.O.C. And that is a fact that your presence, it coexists with the state's stalking presence, and with the prolonged pattern of conduct that is documented with regard to the state's stalking presence, where the same third-party conduct is also documented. You're not talking about coincidences. You're talking about, the clinical term for that is called a pattern, and this is a documented pattern. And under the law, Section 1708.7 of the Civil Code and Section 646.9 of the Penal Code, this is that which is addressing what the state of California as an entity, which would otherwise be attributed to an individual, the state is engaged in that stalking conduct. And the state is using the people of the state of California in order to engage in that criminal conduct of monitoring with it. And that is what group stalking is. And this is how group stalking operates, and that is how group stalking presents a credible threat based on its malicious design to conceal itself by blaming the targeted individual, defaming and harassing the targeted individual, falsely imprisoning the targeted individual if you're not able to avoid a civil suit for that criminal conduct presented by that targeted individual. So Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I am on the third-party facilitating venues, TikTok, Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram. I am on YouTube, where I publish a substantial amount of video documentation. And again, that represents a portion for the purpose of publishing a visual for what it is that I am exposing. But my documentation exceeds that. I have been documenting the state's pattern of conduct since 2018, when I became aware of what was very peculiar conduct inside of my own home by people that the person that lived with me that is now identified as a third party. And so it presented a threat, and I wanted to move away from it. And my documentation began at that moment, not knowing what I was going to encounter, not knowing that, I had never thought of or heard of group stalking before. You're talking about just diligent notation of every odd occurrence, and that's literally what I did. To the degree it was so frequent, it was so common as far as the behavioral patterns, it literally became that which is identifiable into elements. They're behaving in a code. They are engaging in identical behavioral patterns that are achieving a specific criminal purpose. That's how often, that's how much I was presented with this behavior by the state and by third parties alike. That's how familiarized I became with the conduct. My aim now is that conduct operated by any public entity at any place would be readily identified, such that it does not remain a secret. Not only that, it is not impervious to prosecution. It is not impervious to the creation of legislation to disincentivize and to punish and to expose where a public entity is engaged in that, and third parties alike. So like I said, Erica Lorraine Spencer is my name, the full name that I am that I maintain my public presence. This is the podcast on Anchor, where I engage in publishing audible form of documentation and sharing what are things that are related to this group stalking that I remain subject to, but it serves a public purpose, a good service, if you will, because I am sharing that which does pose a credible threat, but also at the same time, how else would a system of this nature, of this unprecedented level of criminality, be exposed but for someone going through it and exposing it as you go through it? Because there is no other way. It's like a prism, and there is no way out of the prism. Prism, Prism. There's no way out of the prism except for being inside of it and exploring it and displaying the ways in which it is a prism, and how you are able to identify it as such. And this is how you move along with progressing as to how you avoid no other person ever being inside of a prism of that nature. And so this is a criminal. The state of California is a criminal. It is a stalker. And the documentation is what proves it. Facts speak for themselves. And there is no differentiation between the state of California's treatment under the law versus any other individual's treatment under the law. The conduct is described and defined as stalking, and the only difference is that it is not attributed to an individual. It is attributed to the entity and the third parties that are acting on behalf of that entity. So group stalking is that which is challenging only to an objective surveyor, not to a biased one, but it is challenging in that it is stalking in the reverse. You're not talking about one specific person that is a stalker. You're talking about, instead of an individual, you're talking about, it's not one person, it is one entity. One entity is the one that is stalking, okay? And that entity is operating in concert with the people that surround that targeted individual subject to the stalking of the state. And that is how public corruption, by the way, is shielded, because otherwise the targeted individual would have no idea that they are subject to monitoring just because of the fact that people happen to be around you, because people are going to be around you when you're at the grocery store, when you go to Starbucks, when you ride the bus, when you're driving in your car on the freeway, when you're walking down the street on the sidewalk. You are always in relevant position, mind you. Okay, this is how monitoring is a system that is unhindered everywhere that you go. But where you have the facts that reveal the existence of a state operation of group stalking, those facts take on a different they take on a different context, and the implications are that you have third parties that are present not by coincidence. They are present while those facts also coexist. And this is that which is the absence of coincidence. It is the absence of chance. You have, in addition to those facts, you have the ongoing criminal acts of the state in the court system and by the police, where they are engaged in that egregious criminal conduct, that also is suggesting the substantive value of everything that I am documenting. Why else are you engaging in denying the day in court? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? A clear violation of the Constitution. You're talking about hypocrisy in the courts themselves. Okay? You're talking about hypocrisy by the police themselves. They are criminals wearing police uniforms. It is hypocrisy in every form. An unbelievable level of hypocrisy. I will leave it there. My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I do get caught up because it is something that I am passionate about because it needs to change. And I understand that this is something that the government ignorantly and falsely assumed that it would get away with. And it's not getting away with it now, and it will not get away with it. And I am determined to continue to expose every criminal. That's why I went to law school. That's why I pursued my bar license, and I maintain that skill set. Where the state is engaged in targeting and stalking and being everywhere you are subject to systematic harassment in every area of your life, and it tends to have the destructive impact of you're not wanting to be subject to that harassment in the workforce anymore, of you're not wanting to be subject to the government being inside of your private home where you did not welcome it. I have a right not to be subject to that, but it does not take away my ability to document the government engaged in that criminal system, and that's what I'm doing. And I am the same person. I am just merely engaged in confronting that system that initially targeted me and continues to target me, which is what I continue to document as well. So it is now 9:17 p.m. Erica Lorraine Spencer, and you can find me on the internet under that complete name, irrespective of the third party's criminal conduct of seeking to conceal my documentation. It is present. Never mind the online defamation, that is P.O.C. of the system at work on the venue of the internet. And it will be prosecuted, and it will be handled under the law in the manner that it should be, a manner that is commensurate with the group conduct that is used as a weapon. Legislation will address that group conduct in a commensurate fashion. Erica Lorraine Spencer, and that is the P.O.C. All right, this is just a final concluding statement with regard to what I published in my podcast about the 8:15 p.m. Incident of state stalking via airplanes. That's the pattern of conduct. The state engages in stalking conduct using planes and helicopters at every location that I'm at, public or private residences alike. And I maintain presence at a third-party facilitating venue, Economy Inn in Ontario, California, where the state is engaged in repeated, ceaseless flight directly over my room, flying south over my room, and then continuing south, and then they fly to the east. So they're essentially just flying in circles repeatedly over my room. That is the repeated creation of audible activity while group stalking is underway. So audible activity is created while light is constant and group stalking is constant. This is the state engaging in group stalking and monitoring at Economy Inn. And in that video, and which I also uploaded in my podcast, is speaking to the creation of audible activity of the third parties where you hear the beeping, and they are also creating light activity. They are third parties that are sitting in their cars outside, acting with the state at the same time that the state is creating that activity. They are adding to activity. This is how you monitor with communication devices. Third parties are engaged in intentional conduct that is resulting in monitoring with communication devices. What I want to speak to is that is the pattern of conduct of group stalking and monitoring in relevant position to me. That pattern of conduct of state stalking it continued on the internet, again, as I as I'm actually in the process of uploading my podcast. The state engaged in flying over directly my room again, which I recorded on a live podcast on Periscope. And that was uploaded to Twitter. Now, again, that video was over a minute, about a minute and over a minute and 30 seconds. And that was uploaded from the app. What I have is the video that I recorded at 8:15, which I sought to, which is about, I think it's about maybe a little bit over a minute and a half. I want to be precise, so let me look at it real quick. That video is 3 minutes and 7 seconds, if I recall correctly. Yeah, 3 minutes and 6 seconds. Both are times of videos that Twitter is fully capable of uploading. I've uploaded a live broadcast as long as 9 minutes. And again, that was the first time I used it. When I use instruments like that in the app, the state precludes the ability to engage in that manner of publishing documentation again. But this is just speaking to the capability of the apps. They're able to upload videos of pretty much almost, a reasonable duration. And what is occurring on my phone is, what I'm going to speak to is the P.O.C. on the venue of the internet as monitoring continues. And so, again, this is the connection of all facts. The state just engaged in flying directly over my room moments prior. So I go to post the information on the internet and obstruction. This is P.O.C. online, where the state engaged in that criminal conduct. Then on the internet, that is on my phone, engages in and with third parties that are group stalkers all around with communication devices, engage in obstruction, blocking the ability to publish that criminal conduct about what it is actively doing on the internet. And so that is what I also capture in screenshots as I go to upload the video at about a minute and so of the 8:15 incident. That is blocked. After the live Periscope video, which exceeds a minute, is saved and uploaded to Twitter. And again, that's occurring after I finish the podcast about the 8:15 incident of the plane flying directly over my room. So I record another video while editing my podcast at around 9:20 p.m. And that is another video of the state engaging in flying directly over my room. And those are just captured video. The state is engaged in ceaseless stalking conduct in airplanes. Those are just two incidences within an hour of the state flying directly above my room, south, and then turning east in the sky, where they're just literally just flying in circles, creating constant audible activity, while group stalking third parties create activity and engage in remaining in relevant position with communication devices. And so this is the obstruction that occurred on the Twitter, because that's the app that I went to, blocking repeatedly the ability to upload the video to that. I then go to Facebook and upload the 8:15 incident of P.O.C. And again, the obstruction occurs in the manner of prolonging the upload process. And that is not only to deter and obstruct the ability to publish documentation, it is also a process where the state is engaged in literally tampering with and changing the material, which they also do on YouTube. My YouTube videos. And so the video that is uploaded to Facebook, it is distorted in image. It is zoomed in so that it is mutated. It's distorted in what you can see. And it is also in landscape when I recorded the video clearly and not zoomed in the manner it is uploaded on Facebook, such that it is not distorted. It's very clear. And it is in portrait, not in landscape. This is a distortion of my documentation after a prolonged wait of the upload to Facebook. This is P.O.C. of obstruction on the Facebook app. And this is immediately following the state engaging and flying directly over my room. I'm just showing the connection of facts. I'm showing the P.O.C. from venue to venue, from physically flying over, engaged in group stalking and monitoring at third-party facilitating venue economy in, to the venue of the internet engaged in ongoing obstruction of the ability to publish the documentation of the criminal conduct that the state is engaged in. This is how audacious this entity is. This is how wildly criminal this entity is. And that is minutes after just capturing the state flying over. So there is no question about what is occurring, and this incident is not solidification of that. There is not a reasonable question of it. I've shown the facts, and I'm also showing how there is no coincidence and there is no separation of facts where the state's engaged in a system. The facts are related. The facts are relevant to each other. They are not isolated and looked at in a vacuum. To the contrary, they are assessed together, and the fact acts are relevant. And this is showing the state engagement in malicious conduct. And so that is not only engaging in group stalking and monitoring, it is engaging in obstruction of the ability to publish that criminal conduct that I capture on video. And they do that by blocking access to internet altogether. They do that by altering the material of my documentation, altering and distorting the images. They do that on YouTube in a various manner of ways, altering the location, the information that I input as far as the locations, and changing the ability to see the video altogether, just freeze frames, taking out audio, just tampering with and altering and damaging that. So it does result in multiple uploads, prolonged uploads, as the state is engaged in tampering with the material, changing and altering and distorting the material. This is P.O.C. for obstruction, criminal concealment, malicious criminal conduct by the state that was minutes prior also flying over. This is P.O.C. And the third parties that are in relevant position visually that you see, they're engaged in criminal conduct with the state. Not a coincidence that they're present where the state is engaged in stalking and monitoring. They're acting with the state. And it is also third parties remain in relevant position that you do not see in the rooms, in the parking lot, in the on the streets, and on the freeway. That's relevant positioning. That is systematic crossing a path with communication devices. The system is an expansive one, and all they have to do is be present. They are merely engaging in monitoring where the state is present using airplanes and helicopters and police that remain present, engaged in hovering surveillance and presence. So I just want to follow through with that because that is the obstruction that follows what I captured in video at 8:15, and I captured another live broadcast on Periscope, which uploaded to Twitter, and then my attempt to upload the video taken at 8:15 is repeatedly obstructed on Twitter and then on Facebook. And then I go back to Twitter and portions of the video are then accepted. And so this is the state blocking the ability to immediately publish. It's like a stalling while the state is actively engaged in trying to, in any way that it can, obstruct the ability for the information that I am publishing to be seen by the public. And so you have them monitoring what I'm publishing about what I'm documenting, but then you also have the active effort of delaying, if anything, if they can't stop my ability to upload it, then they engage in just pushing back, not permitting the immediate upload, such that whatever criminal conduct is going on in the background, rearranging the arrangement of the platforms such that they remove it off the internet so that even if I upload it, it's not seen. This is not far-fetched. Instagram and Facebook, Tumblr, TikTok, Google engaged in the very conduct that I'm speaking of. We're not even publishing my pages, removal of my pages, misrepresenting that it is not online. That's Instagram specifically. This is also where the Google search for my name, there is a constant rearrangement of the Google searches under my name, where my name stays the same, where my platforms on social media, the only thing that is changing is that I'm adding more documentation to those platforms, but it should be substantially the same direct results appearing first. But what you have is the constant rearrangement of search results. That is criminal conduct, seeking to obstruct and conceal. And this is another thing that is relevant to why the state is also engaged in delaying my ability to immediately upload information onto the internet, which is Twitter and Facebook. This is concerted effort by third-party facilitating venues online and by third parties in relevant position monitoring with communication devices, acting to obstruct the ability to use the apps to get online and publish that information. And this is how obstruction and facilitation manifests, and this is how it appears. And that is also probative of the very exact same system that I'm exposing. Not only the elements and the actual video of the state engaged in clear stalking conduct, but the acts of obstruction is additional evidence of that system in operation. It's currently 10:34, and so that's what I was documenting was the obstructive criminal conduct by the state following my podcast earlier. Providing legal analysis, and then the P.O.C. that the state engaged in after that podcast, which was continuous flying over my room, and then the obstruction on the internet, which is another venue where the criminal conduct is underway. Erica Lorraine Spencer, and that is P.O.C. from venue to venue.